Sexual coffee, it's only $7. Sit and sip your cup, share both your joy and hollers. Stay and drink your brew, but spill your tea. You might be the asshole or a storyteller like me. Small town cafe where secrets blend with steam. Voices rise and fall like rivers in a dream. From heartbreaks to triumphs, tales unfold. Speak your truth, let your courage be bold. Stay a while, let your heart unwind. This corner booth peace you'll find. Whether you're the rogue or sage so tall, in the warmth of coffee there's room.
1, 2, 3. Hi there. It's Edith. I'm a Rosenblatt, a bisexual coffee. It's only $7. I'm sorry, I can't do it.
That's okay. We have stock.
Bisexual coffee. It's only $7. It won't break the bank.
Voice of you now that I'm just going to throw into every new episode.
Just use that.
We're good. The only thing we need now is music. I wish to God we knew a musician who could just make like some riff for us or something.
Hey, Jace, what are you doing, brother?
Hey, buddy.
It's such a great segue.
Yeah, brother.
No, I can't believe how smooth that was.
Thank you.
Bisexual coffee.
Yes,
Here we go.
baby.
Here we go.
Yes.
Cut,
Jace,
clip. All right, Jace, that's all we need, man. Thank you so much for coming out now.
Yeah, it was a great show.
Peace. Hey, Jace, my friend, I would like you, if you would, please let our listeners know who you are.
Okay.
You describe you.
Well, I'm Jace Vek. I'm 52 years old. I grew up in southwestern Pennsylvania in a county called Fayette County, which is a county which was about 40 minutes from the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. Just I point that out because people have seen that imagery of that area because of that, disastrous event that took place. So you can kind of get a picture of where I was from. The county that I was born and raised in is the poorest county in the state of Pennsylvania. My family was very engaged with poverty. I was raised in a redneck culture of hillbilly redneck, and sometimes I say this word not trying to heap the slur into the air, what sometimes people would refer to as white trash. The ugliness of the term is the indigenous to the types of areas where I'm from, because it signifies lack of education, a tremendous amount of racism, a tremendous amount of misogyny, tremendous amount of living in lower self-consciousness from the ground up. That is a culture of living by the example of being raised in it, really. I started in private school. Oddly enough, this is the strangeness of this story now. When I was 6 or 7, I tested out of first, second, and third grade, but they had just changed the laws in Pennsylvania to not accommodate that anymore, so I was forced to attend them anyway. I started playing the piano when I was 3. I guess looking back, I suppose it's fair to say that I was something that you would call now as a prodigy. I could hear anything, play anything that I heard, and it goes on to a very weird level with it.
That's cool.
Being able to recall things with a weird accuracy and this kind of stuff. So this came with me through my life. Music was always part of my life. I probably had 10,000 hours behind a piano by the time I was 12 or 13 years old. By the time I was finishing high school, they wanted me to be a priest, something I didn't want. That's why they paid for the education, the Catholic Church. I left school and I received my first professional employment job performing the piano in public around 16 or 17. I had a couple of little jobs before that, which I clearly, was minimum wage, typical stuff, 2 months at McDonald's, a couple months at a grocery store. And my entire life, this point forward, has been self-employed. I make music as a freelance artist. I've done this all my life in private venues and these kinds of things. I have a bunch of albums out. I have a website where now we're getting re-coordinated as content creation is the primary mechanism of my purpose now. Something which has developed quite rapidly here on TikTok. I have a very independent mindset, but a very strong left-leaning set of views. I, like many people, have spent the better part of this past year voicing my opinions very staunchly on things that I've seen over the past 15 years. This is not something new. These recent events in this rotten stew that we're all trying to walk away from, but realizing it's on the table no matter where we go. It's nothing new. It's been going on for a long time, and it's been a steady journey to get here. So I'm looking at how can I be of a value to the community that I've built. I've created a Discord server to do so, and it's just been launched, and I'm creating music that is designed to authentically showcase that I am wandering on this timeline with you, trying to find my inspiration and my light. Sometimes I'm able to step into it, and sometimes I just have a cloudy day, and I just have to wait it out until I get my next shaft of sunlight. So it's a very realistic approach I take, a very holistic approach to life. How I do and what I is just as important as what I do. How I live on this timeline, how I choose to engage, how I choose to set my modality to deal with these events that make me angry, how I choose to take this in and what I do with that energy. I have a very special approach with emotional energy that I've developed over 20 years. I guess it would be also good to say that I am extremely empathic to the point that I've had a couple of events, 3 or 4 in my life, that were a little bit close to an X-Files moment personally for me. And it was that powerful of an experience until this day. When I think about things that happened, it was just a little bit much even today to process.
I can understand that.
The energy of people, the body language combined with the way that they speak, the sound of their voice. When a person talks, I can almost feel the sound of their chest. My ears are extremely sensitive. Being a professional musician, I've trained this also. So I hear things in people's voices sometimes that I don't want to hear.
Pain.
It's just it's something that I sit in this house having this conversation with you right now. It's a white man living in San Francisco, California. And the past week on this app, I've seen enough pain to, if it could be converted into a fuel burning energy, would be enough to power this country for a month. And simultaneously seeing people trying to cope with this from my position of executive privilege here, living in the most liberal, powerful democratic government in the world, perhaps, even with its shortcomings, even with its mistakes. California is a collection of mistakes, mistaken experiments that have failed. Forward, always forward, sometimes from one failure to the next. But because we will not treat homelessness like a pariah, and instead look at these experimental policies that are designed to try to deal with this, and one fails after another, we become the target of the rest of this right-leaning country as being a failure. Failure is failure to try. Failure is failure to try. I'm talking about people's lives.
It's all about suppression, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, that's their language. That's the language they're using, especially in this election.
Yes.
It's fear-based. It's oppression.
Mm-hmm. Yes. They want to get inside of your head and police the way you think. If I could engineer you to be ashamed to open your mouth, I own you. And this is a lot of what is taking place right now. It's this going back to a culture of queers get back in the closet where you belong. This kind of language is absolutely abhorrent. Your job is to be a servant to a man. If you talk about being independent, we're going to shame you. If you talk about wanting to run the household, we're going to shame you. If you're going to talk about being a strong, independent woman, I'm going to ridicule you. This is the emotional battle that is taking place right now for the soul of a woman, for the soul of the LGBTQIA members, for the soul of the victims of systemic racism. And at the top of this heap, we have white supremacy, who has circled its wagons now with the most volatile among them, the most histrionic people in their culture now, that are right up this close to the N-word in the conversations. I mean, we think that this is an impossible place that we can't get to, but it's there in everything but word. this is the place that we find ourselves on in this incredibly preposterous, peculiar time.
It's
Please.
slipped out in almost like full words just in news circles. Of course, as soon as those come out, people are quick to clip it and show it, and people's like, look, man, this is what people are saying about anybody. The hate, the slurs that come in, and not just for the N-word, but also for other words that have been, other words that have been, boiled and baked by Nazis and other hate groups, not just black people they're targeting, but boy, do they love to put them front and center, and that sucks. It fucking sucks.
I watched Dr. Phil and I watched Donald Trump in conversation on a YouTube video, and sure.
Look at your microphone volume somewhere. You're sounding a little low.
Low?
Oh, yes. It's a little low.
Is that better?
A little better. Can you hear me? Higher?
All of these words that people use, the only way, after watching that conversation with Dr. Phil and Donald Trump, the only way someone can control you is, and this is my belief, is if I allow it. I have to allow that information in. And the only reason I am the way I am and creating emotions that lead to our power being taken away.
If I may.
Yes.
Sometimes if you look at the behavioral profession and people who are voiced their opinions on the subject of severe depression and severe negative emotions, right off the bat, it's important to quantify a couple of things, right? And this isn't so much about your power in relation to the situation. This is about the situation itself. This is a time. This is a bad moment. Let's just call it what it is. Yeah. Depending upon who you are, what life you live, how bad that is not exactly equal to everybody else, which makes this even more difficult because now we bring inequality into the subject of pain. Layers and levels of consequences to various people from various walks of life. So when you say something like this, you have to be, I want to be real careful here. You don't want to be cold or callous about it. You want to be very principled when you say or think or hear these words that hard times move. They come and they pass. How bad this is going to be depends upon circumstances which has not yet completely occurred. Fearing the consequences right now of what has not come to pass is just as disruptive and destructive as walking through the timeline when they are in its own unique way. We have to believe that we have the power and the pathway to get through this. First, if we do not see things in such a way where we are willing to say that this is happening, it's horrible, and there will be a tomorrow. And this tomorrow, sooner or later, is going to get better. And this is the dangerous, slippery slope of something called hopium, toxic positivity. It's not about that. It's about just about the very realness of the situation that we can choose how we operate through this moment and look out 2 years from now. And quite literally, I do believe, and this is speculation, pardon me, that these people are going to fuck things up so badly that the consequences that come back to middle of the road dipshit swing voters who just basically vote like a change of season, who don't take personal consequences until it comes to their doorstep and hurts their particular family members and their particular children, that over this course of this 2 years, whether it's through the tariffs that wreck this economy or laws that revoke civil rights, and I say this with love of a black gentleman who voted for Barack Obama, voted for Joseph Biden, but will not vote for a woman. And this is one example. I'm not keeping responsibility on one race or culture, and I say this to you.
What can we do? What are we going to do to stay vigilant, to be better people, to affect people around us,
put power healing out, get healing back in. I was going to akin that to karma. I didn't get that quite yet, but now I am. And we have came to talk about what self-defense classes can teach you on how to be a better person.
Yes, that's where we left off.
Yeah? All right.
All right. Self-defense classes, Jace. Oh my God.
Yes, I was saying that I taught women's self-defense classes for a couple of years. I used to wear the bodysuit, and it's really about situational awareness and a woman being able to use all the resources of her capabilities to whatever is in the immediate environment to lower risk level right from the start. And some of these concentric circles start at 2 feet, 6 feet, 10 feet, go out to 20 feet. That when somebody enters that perimeter, it is okay to start assessing them as a risk. Anybody who continues to close that distance, the risk factor is going up infinitely the closer they get to you. So the idea is to start managing your mind space, what you're doing and how you're doing it, and addressing whatever it is that's coming towards you from the start. Anyways, the point I'm making is in this society right now, we have a large segment of this boating population that's living under 60 feet of muddy water with a blindfold on that basically goes like this and reacts to whatever's out there by saying, oh, that hurts. I don't like it. I'll go this way. And that means cognitive dissonance. Transgender society is the weaponization of cognitive dissonance in these people. That's why Donald Trump spent $100 million on an advertising campaign 30 days before the election that focused on nothing but bigotry towards the transgender community. Now, a lot of these ads had to do with Kamala Harris supposedly funding the sexual reassignment surgery. Am I saying that the right way?
Yeah.
Those videos, yeah. I was about to say, I don't think I saw them, but as soon as you said that.
I didn't either. I didn't see them.
So well, that's social media.
They were huge on YouTube for some reason.
Well, So Kamala Harris was involved with 2, and I'm not exactly sure the story here, but apparently it can be tied to 2 events of inmates in California that were receiving the type of care that is given in these circumstances, which is things that I'm still learning about. And when you consider that there is a population of 40 million people, 2 people is such a small percent of 40 million that you have to use scientific notation to write it out. It's something times minus 10 to the minus 5 power or something like that.
I think so. Minus 5, minus 6, something like that. Yeah.
So something. It's very small. But this was the entire campaign for 30 days aimed at middle America. So they can get them to the point where they say this. I'm so tired of hearing about this shit. I am so tired of hearing about this shit. Well, the reason you're tired of hearing about it is because the people who want you to vote for them are talking to you about it 26 hours a day. I live in San Francisco, California, and to date, you would think, with the stigmata that's placed on San Francisco about the LGBTQIA community, if Republican's story was true, by the time I go out my door, I've encountered 75 transgender people before I get to the first block on the street.
You're just inundated with trans people.
Yeah.
And to this day, I have not encountered none. You know what I mean? Sure.
But are you sure?
Where are they?
I say this because I hardly go. I say this because I hardly go out.
No, fair enough. Okay, so the math is kind of stacked for you. I got you.
Let me ask you this, Jace. I mean, because I believe everybody's a little trans. I believe everybody's a little gay. I believe everybody's got a little their inner drag queen. I believe all these things like.
Well, keep in mind, I'm talking about the Republican perspective here of what transgenderism is and LGBTQIA. If their story is the one that is the truth, then transgender people look like this, LGBTQIA looks like that. This looks, you know what I mean? It's just this.
It's so generalized. I mean, just the bigotry against. I'm trans, but I have a girlfriend who was previously identified as a man, but now she's a goddess. I mean, I look at her and that's what I see. She's 150 million% woman. There is nothing she is more feminine than me.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't really
always
care.
Wondered. I talked to a friend of mine about this that I hadn't talked to in 10 or 15 years, and he's one of those swing voters living out in Pennsylvania. And this subject came up, and I said, And of course, I'm probably going to trip over my own personal ignorance here because we're all learning here. We're all in this timeline together, discovering new things about other people that we've never known before. With that comes a whopping dose of personal ignorance that only comes with experience. You got to get experience. And I thought to myself, how would I feel? This is just how my head works. Bear with me because I'm really going out on it. How would I feel if I woke up in the morning and I looked in the mirror at the image of that myself coming back to me, or whether it's the feel of my own skin, body, whatever else, however you want to describe it, and I felt with all my heart and all my soul and all of my experience that I am actually a woman? How would that make me feel? And just off the top of my head, the range of emotions that my empathy wants to point at, whether they're incorrect or correct, makes it clearly evident to me that this is not a situation that might seem at first comfortable, fun, desirable, easily to find happiness in.
Right.
And meanwhile, right-wing America is pointing at me as trying to live in this situation as being evil at all the same time, and acting as if I'm doing this because it's fun. I'm selfish, and I'm just playing games here, and I'm more concerned about myself than the rest of the world. When in fact, man's a man, woman's a woman. That's it. End story. Blah blah blah. And if I go against that, then I'm toying with everybody. I don't think anybody signs on to this from a perspective of, I think I'll have some fun with this.
Yeah. No.
This is life. This is life.
Well, look at it too. Look at it this way. And I've realized this, that it doesn't matter who you are. If you hate, you're going to side with that side.
Yeah.
If you hate, I've seen, Latinos for Trump, for Trump, because they don't want any more immigrants coming over and taking their rights away. But yet you're a Latino and you're voting against your people, but they hate.
It all depends
on
what
generation
they are.
I just want to clear this up because I don't want anybody to misinterpret what I'm saying. Under no circumstances whatsoever am I implying shame in this situation of somebody in these circumstances. What I'm trying to say is we're feeling people, trying our best to understand who we are, what we are, how we are, in circumstances that land on us. That this is our story. This is who we are, and that's the transgender community. It's every community on this planet.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. It's like a giant, as if all the challenges of everybody's personal life isn't enough. You got this giant wheel of bigotry with a spinner on it, and it's transgender stuff. Transgender community, you're going to be the pariah for 2024 election now. Who will it be in 2028?
People come to fear what they don't understand, and there are a lot of people who don't want to understand things that were not in their social sphere because they feel that it's going to affect them. They've lived in their comfortable bubble for so long that the idea of bringing another thought in feels like that might change them. And people are also inherently afraid of change. People are afraid in general. It comes out in all types of different ways, but the biggest one that we all hear about is anxiety. I feel that anxiety was such a driving force. Such a driving force that pushed people to vote the way that they voted. People who would have maybe not have voted for Trump 2 years ago voted now because the thought of change, the thought of a woman being in the White House, or any of the other shit sandwich things that they saw on the ballot that they just didn't like. And they're like, well, here's an old white dude. I mean, he did it before. Maybe he could do it again. There's been...
Well, yeah. It's hard, man. It really frustrates me.
So many different
I think about
reasons.
The situation. Yeah. And what's really, when I say this, it makes me feel a range of emotions when I think about the fact that if Joseph Biden had been under a different set of circumstances, and this is nothing more than a hypothetical experimental question, just like my last question was. I love to have thought experiments. Surely not trying to offend anybody, trying to offend anybody by having thought experiments, because I believe it's a key to having empathy for people is to try to feel what it is other people are feeling, which is often impossible, but worth trying anyways. And if Joseph Biden would have stepped out of the presidential race 6 months ago and we would have had a primary, what would have happened? I'm going to tell you my prediction. I do believe that the misogyny and systemic racism that prevented Kamala Harris from achieving the office of President of the United States, and I do believe to this moment it is the primary reason she is not president. I believe she is the right woman
I do
in
too.
the right place, in the right place, and for me, at the right time. But apparently, for these centrist voters in this country, there's never such thing as. So that this all would have manifested in Gavin Newsom, whether you like him, love him, or hate him, or whatever else. Some people love him, some people hate him. He's a pariah with certain sectors among the left population. I understand. Whatever the case is, he's got the look. He's got the talent on the debate stage, just like Kamala had, but he's got his own way about him. And he might possibly be the president of the United States right now. Because I think that those same people who were in the middle of this might have turned their attention to the greed and the weirdness that was taking place a little bit more, and just with a calm message of, here's what these people are doing, here's why they're wrong. It might have steered them a little bit more in the middle to the left. And this is what the Democratic Party is going to have to figure out. It's like, look, when you use optimism to wish away something like systemic racism and misogyny and bigotry towards the various members of our population, no matter which branch they are, when you look past it, beautiful for you, bad for necessarily if you're trying to set a standard to win. Are we ready to accept that yet? Are we ready to accept that maybe, as I believe that Pete Buttigieg could be one of the most qualified leaders in this country right now, and that's my personal belief. I admire him. I appreciate him. I would vote for him, that he may not be able to win because of who he is.
Yeah.
This is the reality of the situation. So now we have to ask ourselves, are we going to take that city down? Or are we going to go out there and educate people? You can't educate people who are the dumbest, most gullible, most manipulative people in this society, which is the core base voter population of the right, because I grew up with them. Okay. And it's also people in the middle of this who politics is like walking into a Baskin Robbins and picking from 42 different flavors, and whichever flavor looks the most, whatever they're in the mood for, that's the one they pick.
Yeah.
So I'm
weak. Yeah.
Okay. Michael, you were in the military.
Guilty.
And I would say so there's this perspective. I know of the military, the teachers, like me, I'm a nurse. I work for the government as well, in certain facilities and things. And I don't see any money going back. I don't know how the military spends its money. And if
there's
the
a lot
men
of people
in the military
who don't know how the military spends their money.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how people are living, because if you're working for the government, I mean, I live with a school teacher right now and he's doing fine, but you're not going to get rich doing that.
You want a little insight on what it's like to actually live in the military when it comes to like money?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I can't speak to the people who are doing it now because it's literally a score of years since I was in the military. But if it hadn't have been for the housing that they gave us in Virginia, I would have never had the chance to live in a decent house. When the money that I was making at the time, also, to be fair, we were young, we were dumb, we knew nothing of savings. Our money handling was atrocious, but there's a lot of kids in the military who are like that. Straight out of high school, being thrown in there. If they weren't taught about finance in high school, they're not going to learn about it in the Navy. We lived in a pretty shitty apartment. We had enough money to basically, keep our car afloat. The military insurance was there, so we didn't really look for anything else like that. But, it's not like we didn't spend our money on a whole bunch of creature comforts or a whole bunch of flashy stuff. There were people who did, but I have a sinking feeling that if you were young, fresh in the Navy, and you had all of this stuff, that you opened up lines of credit and then you thought that you were going to be in the military to pay them off. I saw that happen. I don't know how much it happened to a whole bunch of other people. So it's not a huge lavish lifestyle. If you do well in the Navy, they'll promise to help you with other things, like maybe get into school, pay for your tuition. VA loans are available, but they're not exactly the best. I mean, but then again, what loans
That was
are...
the food.
The food was okay. I mean, I was on the USS Enterprise, so we had 2 galleys that were pretty well stocked. They offered
cool.
steak and lobster to the families when they came aboard. It was the cheaper lobster, but still, the spiny rock lobster. But all in all, it's not. I don't think most people go into the military. I mean, I wrote in my book that my dad asked me about going into the military because they were going to pay for college. And the recruiter who brought me in there gave me nothing but promise of money if I went in for nuclear side of things. And so, yeah, money was definitely part of the reason why I went in, but I don't think a lot of people are thinking that this is going to be the cash cow. Now, as you get older, if you're staying there longer, maybe if you do your 20 years, I don't know. I did only 4 years myself. I should have done 6, got out on 4 on bad behavior. So,
well, that's what my whole point is. It's like, okay, Washington is so separate from everything. Washington is a separate entity, correct?
Yeah.
They create laws in Washington.
What you mean?
Well, think about it. It's like, okay, Washington governs, they don't govern Florida. We have a governor that governs Florida. Correct?
Yes.
Laws are created in Washington, and then eventually they trickle down into legislature in states. It doesn't directly affect my state, right? Washington.
You mean Washington, D.C.?
Yes,
you mean
Washington,
Washington?
D.C.
Okay,
Yes, that's my question. That's what I wanted to know. It's like, okay, Michael was in the military. Yeah. I've worked for the government. I look at the facility that I work in, and there's literally no money being put into it. No money for the patients, no money for medications. They spend 80 cents a day on the food for patients. Okay. And, you can go to Washington and you can picket and you can fight for your rights and you can ask for this and you can ask for that. But I can tell you right now, the government is going to do what the government wants to do. Am I right or am I wrong?
I see where the boomerang came back in this.
Do you see?
I see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
so there is a sort of helplessness, I think, that comes along with people who have been working in government positions for so long. In fact, people who do work in government are very cynical about how the wheels of change either are too rusted to move or too big to be seen while they're moving. In our lifetime, will we see the change that we actually want to enact? I'll be honest with you, that's kind of the way life goes, government or not. A lot of the things that we want to put out there, unless they're small, direct, we know that we can turn the wheel ourselves. We're not going to see the change immediately, which is why we try to be the best person we can. There are 2 things I want to say in that. First one being that my friend one time asked me what the meaning of life was, and I took a couple of days to, I took a week. There's probably more to life than just this, but it fills me with like purpose every time that I say it. And my answer is to make this world better for the people who are going to come after us, because ultimately that's all we are. We're a chain of organisms that are just trying to build on the past.
Yeah.
And then the other one being, if you want to talk about exactly how hopeless you can feel in the military, I was technically homeless while still being in the military. It was during my downswing. It was while I was getting out, but I definitely lived in an extended stay hotel because I couldn't afford anything else. So, having all that said, there are things that I'm putting out for me to try to make a better world for the people who are coming after me. There are people who are coming onto my page, either people who know me or don't, who are saying things like, I'm scared. What do I do? There's a lot of this going on with, what is my dog whistle to let people know that I'm on their side? Those are the ones that are scared is because they really don't understand what's going on. A lot of these kids are young, like just got out of high school or approaching the end of high school, or maybe, just hit their 20s. And technically, I mean, let's be honest with you, as far as brains go, that's still pretty young, right? And my answer to them has been, we got to keep our eyes open. We got to keep our heads up. Humans have a horrible time looking up. We all want to look down where we're going, where we're stepping, but things that are happening above us can happen with such quick ferocity that it'll leave us stunned, maybe even injure us if we're not paying attention. And so it doesn't matter whose side that you're on. If people are taking away our basic needs as humans, we are not allowed to grow as people. Again, going back to that humans versus people thing we were talking about a couple of days ago, Edith. I want to generate a sphere of people who care about the basic needs, who to put them in a space where they can develop empathy. And to know how important that is.
We live in the most unempathetic nation on the planet.
And it feels that way too.
Is poor. Well, it's known to be one of the poorest empathy nations on the planet. It really is.
Well, it's definitely what they're advertising to everybody too. And that's the shitty part.
The lack of empathy in this country is what is fueling the problem that so many Democratic Party analysts right now are gleefully overlooking as they talk about Kamala Harris's messaging towards the middle class, Kamala Harris's messaging towards these people, those people, lack of this, should have done this. If you would have done that, then this wouldn't have been. Look, when you're dealing with people who literally, like I said, are under that 60 feet underwater, walking away from what hurts them the most, this is basically another way of illustrating cognitive dissonance, formulating the structure by which people decide their biases.
Sure.
Whatever makes me feel slightly weird or uncomfortable, I trend away from.
Oh my God, that is so true.
When people say things that also are in agreement with my trend in that direction, then I trend that way faster. And we could argue all day long with, oh, damn it, isn't there a way we could have messaged on behalf of the marginalized communities in this country? Well, what's easy for us to understand as an education and a system of inclusivity is fighting directly against constant radicalization. And somewhere along the line,
good way to put it,
people discovered that there's elements on the outskirts of out there on the left end where extremism starts, that there's radicalization that is available there too. So let's pull this apart from both sides. Like anything else, I believe this situation can become stronger. It's the annoying part about this, the most angering, annoying part about this is that I have to, unless I get some other data that concludes otherwise, I have to conclude that there is consequences that must take place here for the people who are 60 feet under the water. Because whether or not we like it, they are the ones that are deciding this election in this messed up, broken ass electoral college system, which wouldn't have saved us this time anyways, apparently, because the popular vote was lost as well. And I knew things were going bad the day of when the supposed landslide didn't happen. By 6 p.m. this evening, 6 p.m. that evening, West Coast time, I took a close look at the electoral map of Pennsylvania, and I saw something there that looked very, very, very dangerous. And by 8:30 p.m. that evening, I had a glass of wine, and I went to bed early at 9 p.m. knowing that Kamala Harris lost the election.
Yeah, I went to bed knowing that too.
That take at that time, and wow, how easily we were cajoled because of the energy, because of our willing to believe that this was the moment.
The vibe, yeah.
I mean, yeah.
And that's what I was saying about Washington, is that it's a racket. It is a show. I was telling you, Jace, I said, you know what? I knew she was going to lose. I knew she was going to lose because they can't afford to have a woman in the White House, because
I knew too.
Donald Trump has created so much fear in people. Like, oh, took away my rights. Well, look, honey, I'm trans. I'm going to be trans. I'm queer.
Both
I'm
sides,
gay. I'm
I will say, we're peddling a little fear.
Yeah. MSNBC.
Yeah, they have their own way. Each one had their own way.
I think the biggest mistake right now that the Democratic Party can make, number one, top of the list, is expecting miracles. For example, Gen Z is going to save us. Okay? I have seen Gen Z dudes, 21, 22, 23, I'm 3 years old, and are in that zone. In my comment feeds, how long you been a woman? When did you decide you were trans? You've got such pretty pink lips. Look at his soft dove white skin. Do you have a nice ass? You have such pretty long hair. Constant. constant barrage. Oh yes, constant barrage of bigotry because this bro culture that Joe Rogan has ignited. That's why Joe Rogan saved his endorsement 1 or 2 days before the election after 1 month of bigoted campaigning from the convict Trump to the tune of $100 million. Rogan says at the very end of this, now guys, go do what has to be done. Show people in this country who the men are.
Yeah.
This is a state.
Well,
Gen
I will
Z
say this.
young men are susceptible.
Yes, but also Gen Z are also young and they have 20 years to get through the 20 or 30 years, depending on how long we want to wait for them to catch up to our ages, to see the mistakes and get into politics themselves. There's going to be a new, fresh wave of people. What that's going to look like, it's not necessarily going to be great or bad. That's the nature of politics. It's a quagmire of feelings and money and greed and fear. So it'd be interesting to see when Gen Z grows up to see what they believe, what it looks like, what world they want to shape. I hope it's going to be good because hopefully I'll be looking at retirement around that point, if such a thing even fucking exists.
I don't think there's such a thing for me. I mean, I say that with love though, because I feel more ignited.
Do creatives ever really retire?
But I'm on fucking fire. I am on fucking fire right now. I wake up in the morning with smoke rising around my enthusiasm. I am ignited by the people who are coming to me on an almost sometimes hourly basis. You know, I underestimate myself. I've had my TikTok for a year. I built it up now. It's about to hit 80,000 followers. Of course, I believe TikTok is going to get banned. So naturally, I said to myself, you know, I've got to pull the wagons in here now and create my home base. And I've got a website. It's jace.live. And I got my Discord server. And so anyways, long story short, I put it out there in a couple of pieces of content just randomly after I was either lampooning someone or pointing out, you know, who the dumbest people in this country
all
are.
this stuff.
Well, so something. Well, I can be very, very point blank with my takes. And I say, by the way, I'm creating a Discord server. I'm averaging 500 email signups in 2 days.
That's really good.
And you know, as I know, doing what we do, the email list is the hardest thing to grow in this business because when people give you their email, it's because they want you to have contact. And that is still the principal point of contact for people. This is the way most business is done, is through email, transactive email list building and marketing and stuff like this, that's just the point that I'm pointing at that says that's how powerful email is. I underestimated myself, you know. I'm getting these messages. Thank God you're doing this, man. I don't know what else I would do, where else I would go. I'm not trying to be a guru for anybody, and I'm not trying to be this lighthouse on the cliff pointing out into the sea. But whatever reason, I'm good at pointing this at whatever it is that I believe is what needs to be said and delivering it in a way that is effective to people, certain people. And this is where I am right now, and I feel needed. I feel wanted, and I feel, more importantly, that's a more shallow end of it. On the more important end of it, I feel like I can actually help someone, and that is what, you know, makes me go to bed causing all that smile on my face.
That's good. Yeah. That's what's causing that energy. They say that, you know, people in power are some of the best people who are, and I say in power, I mean like people who lead, I guess, really, who lead effectively, are not necessarily the ones that decided that they were going to step into that position.
They just happen to graduate. That's how it happened for me. Is I just kind of graduated into this position that I'm in because I was in the lowest of the lowest place. When I say the Republican, my both parents, staunch Republicans. I love the Indians. I love Latino community. I've always wanted to be Black. And of course, I'm Jewish, but never grew up Jewish. I was in a Baptist cult. So, I mean, you know, and then there's the queer aspect of my personality. So to my parents actually hated me. They talked to me like they hated me. My dad, even to this day, talks to me like I'm in servitude towards him and that I need to be obedient. So I had to quit talking to him.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just...
I had to cut my parents off too.
Yeah. I mean, and I didn't even realize that I should have been doing that. Well, so now I understand that if someone's beliefs don't align with mine, I don't really need to be in that close proximity or relationship with them. Or if I am, then I set the boundaries and they need to be respected. So, I'm lucky that I have a brother that loves me dearly. He's a Democrat. He's also a geologist. He's an insurance investigator for Humana right now. He lives in Portland, Oregon. I mean, he's the most amazing person, and I love him so much. But my upbringing was not like his. My parents saw to it that he had the education, that he had all of his needs met. When I was growing up, they medicated me. They put me on all kinds of medications. I don't feel sorry for myself. That's the cool thing. I look at my past like this. Girl, you picked it for a reason, honey. I don't know why you wanted to climb a big mountain like that, but okay. So I've had to climb over a lot of hate, other people's hate for me, for the sunshine that I have.
Well, it sounds to me like a healthy dose of acceptance there that is so very powerful and so very compelling and so very important. Without accepting that these circumstances have power to screw your life up now, but accepting that this happened to me and I happened with it. It takes the victimization out of it. And victimization is something that has forward potential to inform your sense of yourself, the belief of your ego and your belief systems, So that's great.
I've seen all of that change just within a year and a half of knowing Edith. She's been through a whole lot, from the first meager conversation that we had on the first episode of my Lost podcast that I have, to running these with her, and like the enthusiasm that she has on trying anything new and trying and successfully finding new ways to grow. It's been great watching that. I want to touch on community, because it seems like that's where we're headed, is that we want to make sure that the communities that we grow are in a space that they can grow in empathy, that they can be self-aware. The growth in 1 year is amazing. I've been at TikTok for 4 years. It's only been like the last 2 years that I've really known what I wanted to do, like creatively. But I've been pretty much capped at like 10,000 on TikTok, and I've got like meager growth in other places. And I just want to know, Edith, I don't know anything about your numbers. I don't know how many followers or anything that you have, but I have a feeling that your community is more along about the people that you bring in for these conversations.
It is. It's not, I don't have an obsession about the growth. It's more about finding my voice and my authenticity. And my voice was so small when I started. And Michael knows. It's so funny. It was really small, but I had this big idea, big dream. And that is for other people like myself, who I couldn't even fight out of a paper bag. Yeah. Jace, it was terrible. My voice was so small. Speaking up for myself and standing up for my boundaries has been so hard for me. And my roommate has helped me with that, which I'm truly grateful for. We're very different. And we're both in agreement of that now. And you wouldn't believe 2 people fighting to stay in a relationship that doesn't belong as a relationship. And that's the thing. I cannot be with a misogynist male. I cannot be with a man that even thinks they're going to dominate me just a little bit. Because I'm proud of you.
Because I know that there's a certain part of you that goes, but it's a sexy dude, but then you're looking past that, and I'm proud of you. Also, both of y'all were talking about your parents. Jace, you said you cut your parents off, and it was everything I could do to not say, to dive into my dead parent humor and go, my parents pretty much handled themselves. But it's not necessarily what it was. Health issues being what it was, that's what ultimately, changed their fate.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest with you, it'd be interesting just looking back at my parents. Like, my dad was a racist. I wanted to include more people of color in my life when I was growing up. And I had one really cool friend who was Black, who I guess through humor alone won his way into our house, but no other friends that I ever brought around who were people of color were ever really accepted, including the one crush I wanted to bring over one time. But mom, I don't know where she would be in all this. I think she would have been stoked about the idea of Kamala. I don't know if she would have believed necessarily the rhetoric. She was never really one to take people at face value with commercials, something that I've inherited. So I don't know. Like it looks like I think we kind of all know what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to build better communities.
Build community.
I love
Look,
that.
I have such empathy for young people. When I run into a young person, that's all I want to hear. I want to hear your hopes. I want to hear your dreams. I want to hear all about you, you know? And if we could all do that a little bit more, just touching the heart of a young person and letting them express themselves and their dreams for themselves, because that is something I didn't have as a child. No one cared.
You know, something I think about.
My mom would have liked you.
I would have liked her too.
Sorry,
something
Jace.
I think about. No, it's fine. Something I think so grateful to be here. Thank you both of you. This has been a wonderful cathartic experience, and I feel enriched sharing this timeline and this space with you both. I really do. This was a wonderful choice to be here this evening.
We've had a great time,
and I value every minute of it. I think about where this road goes from here, as far as the people who I feel have betrayed us, voted with their lower base emotions, and operated under their non-growth conditions, whatever you like to call it. And I am hitting these people hard in my TikTok content. I'm from the standpoint of my liberal friends, I'm sure I'm going to hear from more of them in this situation sooner or later. I'm like, okay, Jace, I think you've made your point here, but this is not going to win these people back into our fold. I imagine that conversation is going to start at some point, and I don't know what I have to say about that yet. I'm busy enough right now in this.
We'll cross that
space.
Bridge later.
I love my liberal friends, you know what I mean? Like I said, I call myself a progressive independent, and I'm willing to disagree with certain mindsets. It's not politics; it's a mindset about certain things, because I've really worked hard on that, and I'm still failing, but I'm still learning. But getting back to this whole thing, I just when I made the decision back in 2016 to say, what the fuck are we doing here, Republicans? What is going on? Are you there? Hello? Car 54, where are you? What is going on?
No one's home, darling.
I immediately started hearing from not one, but hundreds of people. Loved your music my whole life. Just want you to know I'm throwing your CDs in the trash. I loved your music my whole life. I used to listen to it every Sunday morning. I'm not listening to you ever again. And that was me saying, hey, what are we doing? You know? That was just for that. And I knew right then that I will not put myself in a situation of having to look at the reflection coming back at me in the mirror and know that I'm sitting on my hands and speaking my truth to power because I'm ambitious enough to want these people's money.
Yeah.
That was a strong move right there that changed the trajectory of my life forever. Because I'm an artist.
Yeah.
I rely on people going like this and returning value to me, taking this in and giving it back, and that cut that right down the center. But I want to give a little bit of hope to people, artists, painters, musicians, people out there that are thinking about having a professional career doing this. Please listen to these words. This is not 1990. There are more than enough people in this world that will allow you your privilege of having a professional career as an artist. 71 million people voted for Kamala Harris and counting. We're still figuring some things out about that election. But your art and your creativity, the closer you get to your authenticity, the more powerful you become. And this has pulled off a layer of the onion with me that has enabled me to get to the fresh skin of my creativity. And don't be afraid to. I mean, if you're wanting to be a world famous celebrity or something like that, I don't know what to tell you there. That's something that's beyond my ability to understand. But when it comes to having people who your music means the world to, You know, and it comes from the philosophy of not making something for everyone, making something that has the potential to be a lot for someone. When it comes to that, that is a trust-based relationship. And when you speak your truth to power from your heart with passion and dignity and in some cases pride, whatever it is, the only thing that does is bring people closer to that. You have to walk past the people that think you're a piece of shit to get to the people who think that you are one of the most important parts of their experience, whatever that is. Okay. And just keep that in mind when you're trying to figure this out. If you're a young artist out there and, ooh, man, if I see what I want to say about what's happened, you know, when you look back through history of the most successful artists out there, they were known for having pretty big mouths.
Yeah.
Look, and I know a lot of artists, that are LGBTQIA. I mean, there's just something special about a gay artist. There just really is. I mean, look at Neil Patrick Harris. That man can sing and dance and act, and you know, I love artists.
And I want to come the other way and go, as much as there are cool gay folks, queer folk out there, there's also queer assholes. But you know, that just makes it all, it just makes it all a more interesting community.
Like that crazy guy from Florida on TikTok, who is, you know, outspokenly gay and proud, which is great, but just literally is the most crazy right-wing conspiracy theorist on this app.
I mean,
that's what we call a mean gay, honey.
People have layers. Jace, I think that's the show for today, because Edith promised to edit this one, and we have given her a sizable chunk of stuff to go through. So
some work.
More power to you. I still am finishing one of our last big interviews, who is also from California, and he had rave reviews for California. Said everything was great over there, and he's an interesting individual. I recommend checking out. We just actually released our first part of his. It's on YouTube. It was a wild ride.
It was interesting.
I think we're gonna.
Thank you so much for this wonderful experience. I really appreciate it. This has been
not a problem.
It's been a very lively conversation.
You're welcome back anytime, man. Edith, you wanna?
Absolutely. And if you feel like writing a song for Bisexual Coffee, honey, I'll take it.
Yeah,
just
other things that we should say.
Honey.
Yeah, if you want to make music, we're looking for a nice, cool instrumental. We can talk prices too if we want to. You just let us know what's going on. But also, if anybody has anything that they would like to ask any of the people who've been on here, please put. If there's comments where you're listening to this, like on Spotify or Apple, leave us a review. Actually, Apple's not ready yet, but Spotify is.
Amazon.
Does Amazon have comments? Okay.
Amazon's ready.
But also, we have an email, and it's so easy to find. It's bisexualcoffeepodcast@gmail.com, and we'd love to hear from you.
Wonderful.
And so, Edith, you brought us in. I'm going to take us out. Jace, thank you so much for coming in, and peace out. And word to your mother.
My pleasure. Word to your mother. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sexual coffee, it's only $7. Sit and sip your cup, share both your joy and hollers. Stay and drink your brew, but spill your tea. You might be the asshole or a storyteller like me. Small town cafe, where secrets blend with steam. Voices rise and fall like rivers in a dream. From heartbreaks to triumphs, tales unfold.